Okay, let's see if I can get some of these pieces in here. Brass standoff. Brass standoff. Here's the cover. The plain screw. The X and M lever. And the shoulder screw. Why is that jammed? That spring is the problem. That spring hooked over the top into place. No, it's come off at the other end now. Okay, see if I can get this spring seated first. Okay, it's seated. Let's come off at one end, see if I can get that pushed back. Yes. Success. I'll get that screw run down. So that's the X and M flash sink lever in position. Tighten the one at the other end. Check that this lever moves freely, it appears to. That leaves us with the B lever. And the B lever goes here. Now the retaining screw has a spring that goes round it, so I'll get the retaining screw sitting loosely in position, then get the spring on it before I tighten that down. The spring goes round the groove in the head of that screw. Just got a piece of thread or something in there. Get that spring seated around the screw head. Doesn't go under the screw head, it goes in the groove around the screw head. Like that. Run that screw down. Very lightly. Now I need to get the spring hooked in position at both ends. This hooked end needs to come around to the end of that arm. Like that. The other end needs to come to the inside of this lever, so I've got to lift it up and over. Like that. Check that the screw's tight. Check that the B lever moves freely. That's good. Check that if I press this, you'll hear the flash sink pallets buzz. There we go, that part worked nicely. Check that that cocks and latches in position. That's all good. So that part's fine. And I want my main lever now. So I'll get that cleaned. Do my final lubrication and fit the main lever and the speed settings cam plate, and at that stage we can test the shutter. Now these pieces of course will be coated with the same sticky, gummy grease or oil as everything else was in the shutter. So I really need that off. And the main lever's job is to does a couple of things pretty much simultaneously. It pushes the lever that swings the blade actuating ring to open the shutter blades, and it acts against the retard gear train, forcing that to run, which controls the speed at which the main lever moves, and therefore the time it takes for the main lever to move, therefore the time the shutter blades remain open before they close again. Now all these parts in the shutter are in good condition. They don't look like they've done a ton of work, but they're just gummed up. Right, that part's done. Now I want some molybdenum paste. There's a couple of spots I need to do in the shutter. On the arm, where the blade actuating ring is going to work that. This piece that lifts the pallets, that runs against the blade actuating ring. It also runs against the settings ring at the top. And that looks a little bit odd shaped at the top there. It might mean nothing, it might mean it's been damaged. On the arm here, the blade actuating ring runs against. On this hook, which latches into the blade actuating ring. Now here's the blade actuating ring itself. And normally I give it a wipe around the inside edge, around the outside edge, on the tip of the bird paw, on the little tail or leg down at the back of the bird paw. I think that'll do. Let's see how we go. So first I'll cock the shutter. That allows me to get my spring down in there easily. Hold back the pallets, which allows me to swing that arm back out of the way. Get the main spring over its hook. Now the spring that goes onto this little hook here needs to go in place. So I've got to lift that up and over. That's good. The blade actuator, no, the retard, what the hell am I talking about? The speed settings cam plate. I'll need to lubricate the inside edge so that it revolves smoothly around the shutter, just so that the settings aren't unduly stiff. Where it runs over the pin on the retard gear train, just run it over there. And where the spring, the 500th of a second speed spring, is compressed, I need some in there too. Now back to the shutter. Put this in place. You got to be careful not to trap the B lever, because that's always wanting to slip underneath. Pull that out. Okay. Check the cocking action. That didn't feel good. What's wrong here? I've not got my release in yet. The release, where's the release? What's that funny looking one, isn't it? Let me clean the release and get that in position. That tucks down inside the case there. Oh, it's one of those awkward ones. I'm going to have to take that main lever off again while I put that in place. The B lever was preventing this from dropping into position. That's better. That spring's not tucked down correctly. The spring on the shutter release is very awkward. That's a nice way you can put that. It's an odd shape. It needs to be a very odd shape because it's almost been put in like an afterthought. It's not a well-designed system at all. It's a horrible compromise. But it's one that they persisted with for a long, long time. Okay, get that spring back over there. And put the speed settings cam plate in place, and hopefully this time I've done it right. Get the B lever out from underneath. There we are. That's B, and that works nicely. Let's try 1 second. That doesn't want to run. Got about a tenth. A tenth should be something like this. That's pretty good. So the 1 second is a bit suspect. Actually, that's running quite smoothly just there. So perhaps I'm worried about nothing. Ooh, this. Yeah, this cover plate, the front cover, that's sticky. I'd have to clean that and put it in place. And then I'm going to have to run some tests on the shutter to see if the speeds are appropriate. They're not 100 miles away from where they should be. Since I've touched nothing in the way of adjustments, that should mean that if there was nothing wrong previously, at some stage in the past, that the shutter worked correctly. Once it's been cleaned and lubricated appropriately, it should work again without any further adjustments or alterations. This should be a half then. That's pretty good to be a fit. What's my speed range with this one? Are they the... What's it say on that front plate? I haven't had a look. I don't know whether it's the conventional set or not. We've got 500ths, 250th, 100th, 50, 25, 10. Yeah, okay. Same as a Retina 2A, 1A and 2A in terms of speeds. B likes that behave. Yeah, no problem there. So this will be a 250th. And a 500th, or you've got to set the 500th speed before you cock the shutter, not afterwards. Yeah, that feels pretty tight. That's probably right. This would be a 100th here. A 50th. A 25th, a 10th. Yeah, they all look pretty credible to me. So I'm just going to test those and see what sort of answers I find from the tester. And hopefully it's good. Well, the speeds are good. And that being the case, I can put this lever back in place. And at least this particular task is done. There's a lot more to do on this camera yet. So I'll pop that shutter to one side. Let's have a look at this front standard. Well, I've got blobs of lacquer and rubbish on there that I'd like to see the back of. Just checking to see what moving parts are on here, to see if anything looks problematic. The retard, this is it, this self-timer here. That will certainly need to be dealt to. Just letting that run down. It certainly times out okay. Of course, it's been driven by quite a heavy spring here compared with what a similar speed cam would be driven by in a shutter. But that looks good. Now that would normally be cocked by the action of the cocking of the camera. That's fine. Okay, I'm going to get rid of these patches of sticky lacquer. Remove my viewing lens. Take this apart so I can get all of this stuff out. Clean it, lubricate it. Take the speed train out. Run that through the ultrasonic cleaner and some naphtha. And I should be good. That's the plan anyway. Our viewing lens is held in place. I can see a screw here. Let's see if that comes loose. I don't see anything else holding it down. I don't really know what shape that tube is in here either, so it could be, I could be barking up the wrong tree. Just back that up. Yeah, that's the whole lens coming loose. Back that up a bit more. No, that's just the front half of that lens. I wonder if it's held in place by that collar. I suppose I could find a manual, but that takes all the fun out of it. Yeah, the whole lot's coming out. I think the collar was the lock. I got set to screw my lens into where I needed it done and then lock down the collar. That was what was required. But anyway, lenses later. Let's deal with this first. See what I'm working with. So as this comes round, there's a little hook on the arm here which catches onto this, the centre of this piece. So as it comes back, when it's released, it drags this piece round, which runs against the pallets and times that thing out. I'm sure the speed train comes off nicely in one piece, so it can be cleaned. I can only see 2 screws, so we'll assume that those are the 2 correct screws to undo it. And if it flies to 1,000 pieces, I'll be very displeased. Okay, so there's my self timer, and that I will go and clean in the ultrasonic cleaner. We have quite a strong spring here holding this spring back. Now if I disconnect that, I should be able to rotate this and lift it off the posts, I think. If I can rotate it that far. What's stopping it going further? That thing. How do I... Let's go back. If I swing that arm out of the way, then rotate this, then it lines up with the bayonet, then I can lift it off. Like that. Easy when you know how. It's just a puzzle. Okay, so there are 3 screws holding this bayonet mount to the front plate, so I've got to make sure they're tight. I don't need to otherwise take that thing off there. I just need to make sure that it's secure. And it is. Okay, so far so good. I'm going to work on this lacquer and see the back of it. Well, I've cleaned a few things up. Let's get this back together. I'm going to lubricate this lightly with a bit of molybdenum paste. This is driven by a rather strong spring, so I don't expect any problems with it. And this fitted over the bayonet's wear there, I think. Why won't that rotate? What's stopping her? That thing, is it? Yeah, I've got this jammed up. I'm going to have to take that off and sort this out. The spring here's come off its post. That goes there. Hang on. That's better. Yeah, what's the secret here? That thing's back. It should drop over there. Why won't that rotate? Oh, that thing's holding it. What's the secret? I got it off that way, I'm sure. No, I just wasn't holding the mouth right. Once I'd pushed it, it went into place. So the spring for returning that is this one. Right, that looks good. So that's exactly as it should be, and all that's runs nice and smoothly. Now, the self-timer for this is here. Of course, this arm has got to be held back out of the way of that. Like that. There were 2 screws. Does anyone remember which one went where? I don't. So we'll just try this. Doesn't seem to want to go. Is that the same size? Perhaps not. Oh, look at that. Things go so much smoother when you do it the right way. Okay, and this other one must go here then. Oh, that's odd. I honestly would have expected those screws to be the other way around. But they fit this way and they didn't fit the other way, so that's usually a good sign, isn't it? So, here would this be cocked, like that, and there's the speed train running down. That seems to go okay. Is there any adjustment for position? Let's try that again. Certainly runs smoothly. I'm going to lubricate that speed train with some graphite powder now. work it a few times and blow out the excess powder. That seems to run very smoothly. I'll go and blow that excess powder out and then I'll consider that done, I think.